Imagine we are in the year 2030 or 2040. What skill would you say is the most important skill needed to thrive at work? Would it be the same as what we think in 2021? So much has changed in the past few years, and even before the pandemic, how we communicate, collaborate, innovate, and work has evolved at a rapid speed. Remember how you felt when you started your first job? What skills turned out to be really important, and which ones didn't? Hi, I'm Monica King, founder and CEO of InnovatorsBox, and welcome to Dear Workplace by InnovatorsBox, where we study trends, changes, and challenges at work. Today, we're uncovering skills for the future. What really matters, what may not, and why.
So I think a skill set for anyone to embrace is pick the thing that kind of both scares you and also excites you, but scares you that you've been avoiding, because the more you venture out into that space, the more you'll realize it's not that bad.
The internet of behavior has become a real thing because people that didn't interact digitally ever or as much now have this huge amount of digital exhaust that they're leaving. And as companies and as associations, both really, how are we using this digital exhaust and this kind of behavioral data in a way that helps us serve our customers?
I think the pandemic exacerbated a trend that was already happening, which is our education system. A lot of people are saying failing, but really it's not serving the needs for students to build the social and emotional skills that will be needed to be resilient and thrive and adapt in the world, because the jobs are going to keep changing. The people who they interact are going to keep changing.
Again, if you asked me 6 years ago, what do I think the important skills are? I'd say all tech. Oh, you got to know all the code and the automations. And as I've grown in this field and as I've gotten experience, the tech part just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks.
I think the creativity is a little bit tough vocabulary. I think everybody talk about the creativity, but I feel that creativity is something that you never done before, or you could just collaborate with someone other side of profession.
Those are my friends, Jeff Harry, Julie Susilio, Kevin Felix Chan, Loria Mitchell, and Simon Shim. As you hear their notes on skills, what comes up to you? For me, my curiosity is buzzing. To understand the future, we should understand our past. What helped you be who you are today? Learning and unlearning was something I always did. But I didn't know until more time passed how certain events and skills and experiences helped me become who I am today. This is why the World Economic Forum speaks of the importance of seeing skills development as a lifelong learning process, instead of a set of specific skill learning. When we are always in a learner's mindset, we are more likely to absorb our surroundings with curiosity and openness. Even though I enjoy reading the results of studies done on the future of work by the global consulting firms like McKinsey, I'm also a believer that we will only learn those key skills for the future by doing them. Learning by doing. So in today's episode, I want to do something different. I want to provide you a front seat to some conversations I have with friends on this topic and have you determine what you think stands out. Thinking differently or being curious will only happen by us trying new things, learning new things, and permitting ourselves to learn new things. I'll put in the show notes more details on who they are and how you can reach them. I'm also going to recommend some books and articles for future readings on this topic if you want to look at some specific list of skills. But in the meantime, I ask you to join me and actively listen with curiosity to notice 3 things. What is resonating with you? What is surprising you? And what do you want to do as a result of what you've heard? There is no right or wrong answer. The key is, I want to open your lens to more insights on how different people are asking these questions and devoting their time differently. I believe the secret to reskilling for the future is being aware of all these voices, the similarities and the differences. Are you ready? Here we go! Jonathan Chan is the co-founder of Fiscal Note, As an entrepreneur and a software engineer, I was curious what skills he found important, but also what he thinks differentiates a great engineer versus an amateur. He shared that how we handle errors and problems is an important skill today and will continue to be an important skill in the future.
When you run into these problems, you tend to panic a lot. And I think this is true with like pretty much any industry. But you tend to panic a lot, as an entrepreneur in the beginning stages, you tend to panic a lot. But as you go on, you kind of get used to it. And then you stop panicking and you start just going into your problem solving mode. Like, okay, well, here's the problem. Now what do I do to solve this problem? Like, here's step one. Okay, look at the problem and then do all these things to figure out how to isolate exactly where it is or where it's happening. And then you kind of just try a bunch of solutions to fix it. Like, I think what set aside the experts and like the masters it's not that they don't have problems, is the way they handle, the issues and the problems. They just handle it like as if it's just another thing that it's like part of it, right? It's like expected. Like, in the beginning, you want to try to create things with no errors, no problems, which is impossible. And then when something bad happens, you panic. Oftentimes you panic. And this is like true with anything, especially as an entrepreneur, but in programming, like this skill is like really important, where you kind of just problem solve. And I think I've gotten to the point where I used to ask a lot of people for help, but after being an entrepreneur and being by myself and not in a team of engineers, I learned to not rely on other people. So before, if I run into a problem, if I'm in a group of people, I always just ask the next guy, and then they ask the next guy, and maybe we figure it out as a group. But now, like, I think the true masters, it's not that they don't ask problems. They ask people, but they ask the right questions in a way that they don't depend on that person. And they don't hand the problem to that person for that person to solve. They ask it in a way that they're solving a problem, but they need a little bit more information in order for them to solve the problem.
Laura Mitchell, a Salesforce consultant and a Salesforce administrator at Peninsula Open Space Trust, also shares how as more time passes, she sees it's a mix of both agility and technical skills that help her be who she is today and who she wants to be tomorrow.
Again, if you asked me 6 years ago, what do I think the important skills are? I'd say all tech. Oh, you got to know all the code and the automations. And as I've grown in this field and as I've gotten experience, the tech part just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks. And at this point, I'm like, tech is maybe 10%. The other 90% is the people. It's people management, project management, as you pointed out, design thinking, being creative. That's what I love about it. It's like, cool, tell me what you're trying to do with your organization. Like, oh, you want to help eliminate homelessness, or you want to preserve open space, or you want to help develop leaders. Well, that's so exciting. But then I love the part where you're trying to figure out, then what does that actually look like in the system, and how can I organize it so that folks will be able to do that stuff more easily? So it's the tech part, and you can even outsource the tech part at this point. It's really the thinking, the design around it, being a strong communicator, asking lots of questions, being a really good question asker. I think that's part of the kind of being able to say no or say yes at the right times, is asking the right questions, and to make sure that you're fleshing out all the little details or nuances. Something might sound straightforward at first, and then you start to peel back the layers. You're like, okay, yeah, no, this is a lot. Let's make sure that we at least plan for it and account for it and all be on the same page about expectations.
Communication and people are key, but hone it in the way that works for you with your strengths, values, and interests. Kia Weatherspoon, president of Determined by Design, a full-service interior design firm, shares why when we think about our future skills, we have to start with who we are. She says, how can I be more like you in the future isn't the right question, even when we admire a role model very much.
Well, now, first of all, this is what I always say. I don't want you to be like Kia. I want you to be like Monica. I want you to be like Kelly. I want you to be like whoever, right? We don't need a bunch of Kias. We need individuals, right? I think the skill in my profession, in interior design and architecture, service-based creative industries, people need more empathy. They need more courage to ask why and challenge preconceived conventions and notions. That is what the next generation, the future of our industry needs: empathy, courage, curiosity to why. That's what they need. Because all the other skills are teachable. If a person, 20 years your senior says, we're going to design this space like a prison because that's what we do. We need to watch these people. You need courage to question that person. You need courage to say, well, is this a space you would want for your child? You need courage to say, look at empathy. And then you need courage to ask, and why do we always have to do it this way? Why can't we change it? Right? The skill, the technique, you can learn that. Courage, empathy, curiosity, that's the money. That's the money.
Courage, curiosity, and empathy. Indeed, this is where the money is. This is why Simon Shim, principal at the ADG structural engineering firm, Access Design Group International LLC, speaks about the importance of having more creativity and not letting the heaviness of uncertainty get in the way of honing it.
Skill. Yeah, I think is somehow I always looking for passions. I try to build my passions. As a structural engineer, right? I happen to be part of a team in the two projects, small project and a big project. The one project is in the Millennium Park in Chicago. The other project is a high-rise building in Seoul in South Korea. Somehow, when I got involved that project, I realized that I like this. I think probably that is a momentum I found. So since then, I always been trying to learn and new engineering and about the high-rise building. But that requires some positive mindset. I always try to fight for that because I don't want to just see my passion is dying. So somehow I'm looking for some positivity throughout any activity.
Still, in the midst of all of this, you don't want to miss the chance to hone your technical expertise. Julie Cecilio, CEO of Association Analytics, shares that with the pandemic rushing digital transformation, our way of honing more digital literacy and agility will become even more important. And even if AI and machine learning and coding isn't your cup of tea, she shared with me why IOB is one thing we should all learn more about: the Internet of Behaviors.
The Internet of Behaviors become a real thing because people that didn't interact digitally ever or as much now have this huge amount of digital exhaust that they're leaving. And as companies and as associations, both really, how are we using this digital exhaust and this kind of behavioral data in a way that helps us serve our customers better and more efficiently? And so now we're really looking at how we do that. And a lot of that falls into unstructured data, right? A lot of times when people think about data and analytics, they think of structured data, things that can fit in rows and columns. Now, with the tools available, you can also look at unstructured data. And a lot of times that's more of the behavioral data or social media data. What are people saying? Communities, that's something big in the association world where they might belong to a community where they're chatting away and posting and kind of learning from their peers. And how are we taking that information and combining it with the structured data to really understand our client base, our customer base, our member base? And so I think we'll be hearing more and more about this IOB or the Internet of Behavior, largely too. And it's not that people don't want to tell the truth, but if they are asked something up front, if you were to say, what are your general interests? Check these boxes. I might say accounting. But if you watch what I read and what blog posts I'm interested in, it's probably going to have nothing to do with that, right? And so rather than trying to get the information directly through surveys and some of the more traditional avenues, I think this wave of data that's becoming from people's behaviors is going to lead us to be able to serve our constituents in a real-time manner, exactly what they want when they want it. And so therefore, everybody wins.
And if you're thinking, geez, why didn't school teach us all these skills? You are not alone. Kevin Felix Chan, the co-founder and CEO of Best Delegate, who develops and serves thousands of K-12 students and teachers through Model United Nations, shares why this is such a key time for all of us, especially for students, to proactively hone their emotional and social skills and take advantage of multiple resources.
I think the pandemic exacerbated a trend that was already happening, which is our education system. A lot of people are saying failing, but really it's not serving the needs for students to build the social and emotional skills that will be needed to be like resilient and thrive and adapt in the world, because the jobs are going to keep changing. The people who they interact are going to keep changing. And so there's a lot of youth education that's moving toward learning these type of skills, right? In Model UN, it's learning how to interact with different people. It's learning to put yourself into the shoes of a country that's different from yours, different perspective, and trying to represent that voice that you might not even agree with, right? When we don't teach those things, we already know what happens, which is we get siloed minds, and then we get Facebook feeds that feed, those echo chambers in Facebook, and then we already see our countries not talking to each other, much less other countries. So that is a product of our education system where we don't know how to empathize and put ourselves into the shoes of other people's perspectives and have those critical conversations. And so that's only going to get worse if that doesn't happen in youth education. So I think, the trends in youth education you see right now are a lot of things that are interactive through experience, whether that's through a simulation, through a project, through group teamwork. All those type of programs are thriving because that's where you actually pick up those skills. That's where you actually get a chance to work with other students. That's where you actually get a chance to struggle in small teams and then grow and learn. Those are all the skills I think that will be necessary in the future. When we think about our day to day, what does that look like? We're usually working in small teams with different people. So how do we set ourselves up for success in that? And that small teams with different people cuts across all careers, whether you're in tech, whether you're in medicine, whether you're in law or business or working in education. No matter what career field you're in, you're likely working in small teams with other people at some point. And we need to be able to prepare our future leaders to work in that type of environment.
Jeff Harry, play expert and workplace play consultant at Rediscover Your Play in Chicago, shares how we have to reframe how we think about skills. When we follow our curiosity, we may learn new things that we never would have even thought of.
Yeah, I'm thinking about different skills, because I think when you think of skills, you're like, I don't have any skills. I don't know. What do I do? I don't know. I just do me, But when I actually try to think about it, I'm like, for example, the 100 podcasts. I did over 100 podcasts last year. Why? I don't know. I was just following my curiosity. No ROI value that I'd planned on. I just did it, and it just was super fun. But while doing it, I realized I got a lot of practice in talking about my work. I got a lot of practice in just communicating my thoughts in a really concise way. That what was interesting, because I got so many reps when finally, I had an article in New York Times last year, or featured in an article in New York Times last year. And then a radio show got me on, and radio shows are so fast. They're 6-7 minutes, and they're constantly throwing questions at you and then talking over you, right? Because I had so many reps from all these long form podcasts, I was able to just come back at them, and they're like, "Oh, you're a little sassy," they were just the reps work, right? And I feel like the reps, like anything, when I did stand-up comedy, I remember doing 150 shows before I finally was just okay, I think I can do this. I think this might be a thing. Ended up not being a thing, but it made me comfortable enough that when I ran some campaigns later on and I was speaking in front of 100 people, it really wasn't that big of a deal, because I had already made a fool of myself at least 150 times at bars and random coffee shops in front of 4 people each time. And it was I've dealt with that awkwardness. So I think a skill set for anyone to embrace is pick the thing that kind of both scares you and also excites you, but scares you that you've been avoiding, because the more you venture out into that space, the more you'll realize it's not that bad. It's not that hard. Even when I now help people navigate really hard conversations, they always think it's going to be worse than it ever is, right? And what they teach a lot in positive psychology is like people think of worst case scenario, best case scenario, but a lot of people don't think of like most likely scenario. And the most likely scenario is usually in the middle, and it's not that bad.
As long as you continue to give yourself permission to be comfortable with uncertainty and change, you will find new paths when others feel stuck. Manil Kai, co-founder and CEO of Eat Offbeat, a catering company with a mission to redefine the refugee narrative, shares how agility and adaptability is so key. Looking back at how she and her team had to adapt at the last minute in response to COVID-19, she shares that it required a lot of humility and agility.
Definitely being comfortable with uncertainty. Because again, I mentioned this, it's multiplied by a million. And being super on your feet. You made a decision yesterday, something new happened today, you're going to change it in a matter of seconds without even looking back, right? You're fine. We've ordered 500 boxes that I'm going to throw out. Sure, let's do that. So that's definitely a very important skill. Adaptability, now more than ever. Knowing how to adapt and being resilient and kind of not... And I can't say this enough, but empathy. I know I've been hammering this all the time, but really, again, every decision you make, making sure you're maximizing impact on anyone around you, from customers to team members to the environment potentially, the whole ecosystem. And it's just more important now because we now understand how we're only as strong as the most vulnerable as in the group, right? If one gets COVID, we all get COVID. So we really have to start becoming more empathetic in the way we look at them.
Agility, empathy, quick decision-making, digital literacy, curiosity, passion, and more. What stands out to you? What surprised you? For me, listening to 8 different friends and 8 different stories reminded me how important it is that we take the future of work and skills development in a human-centered way. Yes, we may all need agility and creativity, but how does that relate to what you do and what you want to do in your domain of expertise in the future you want to build? If it's not picturable, it's going to be harder to build and be motivated to hone those skills. Same with critical thinking and curiosity. Start with where you are to tap into where you want to go. Don't just take that next advertisement that says you have to learn coding to be the most prepared candidate. Take a note from my friends and find what is standing out for you. While we all work in different fields and live different journeys, we're all here to thrive, help others, and make this world a better place. So I'm curious to hear, because of these stories, what skills are you going to hone more? What experiences will you invest in? Your intentions and small actions will lead you to the result you want. The future is then just a piece of reality built from the actions we took today and yesterday. Do share with us via email at info@innovatorsbox.com or on Twitter, InnovatorsBox, your skills journey and how we're helping you rethink the workplace. Thanks again for joining us today. This is Monica King, your host at Dear Workplace. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Thanks to our guests again for sharing their insights. Be sure to check out more about them and some resources I think you'll enjoy in today's show note. Next, we'll be diving deeper into what questions can help us navigate the workplace better. Is there such a thing as a stupid question? Bring your questions and thoughts. We'll see you next time.
Hello there. I'm Luke Helder, the head composer here at Innovators Box, and I hope you're enjoying Dear Workplace. I'm obsessed with art and the power it has to convey meaning and emotion, and I also really like tea. This show is brought together by our awesome team: producer Serin O, audio engineers Sam Lermit and Ravi Ladd, Kelly Gravo on marketing, website designer Akriti Pandey, graphic designer Monica Escobar, and me on music. And of course, Dear Workplace is hosted and directed by Monica Kang, founder and CEO of Innovators Box. To continue the conversation of reimagining the workplace, visit us at innovatorsbox.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share. We would love to hear what you enjoy most about the show, and if there is anything you would especially like to hear discussed in a future episode, let us know and I'll try to convince Monica to talk about it. See you next week.
Hey, it's Monica King. Thanks so much for joining us at Dear Workplace. We wouldn't be here without you, and we want to deeply thank every single one of you for being here and reflecting with us. Today, I wanted to ask for a small favor that will take less than 6 minutes. You see, we are competing in the 16th Annual Podcast Awards by the Podcast Awards, and we need your help. Dear Workplace is running for 4 categories and will love your vote. Best Female Hosted Podcast, Best Asian Hosted Podcast, Business and People's Choice. It's free to put in your nomination at podcastawards.com. So please take a moment to cast your love from July 1st to 31st, 2021. That's www.podcastawards.com. I'll put it in the show notes so you can check that out as well. So thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you again soon.